Okay, let's pick up from the beginning of mitzvah HaMitzvah Mashlima Shishim. Some want to go over some new points. We'll see if we'll go over all points, and we'll see. There's a lot going on here, and we'll see what happens. A mitzvah HaMashlima Shishim Hi Sheishinu Min Kov Hashem Hagodol. Now, the Shem Hagodol is the Shem Mefurish ben Dal Osios. And the Kov means to curse. It's by build it's a lotion from klolo, so it means to curse the Shem Hagodol. So it means that the Shem Hagodol is the Shem Mizborech, and you need the Shem Hagodol. But however, and that's what I'm clearly saying over here, Minakei Hashem Hagodol, the Ram's opinion happens to be that in Shem HaMavorech, you only require Hashem Sheino Nimchok. The Ram Hilchos Avodah Zarah, Peri Beis Halacha Zayin, Ve'elu Hein Dini HaMagadev, Ein HaMagadev Chayiv Skila Ad Sheyiforish Es Hashem HaMiyuchod Shel Arba Usios, Shu Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, V'vochois B'Shem Ben Hashemos Shenem Nechokim. Shenema V'noikiv Shem Hashem Al Shem HaMiyuchod Chayiv Skila V'al Shar Kinuyim Basol. So the diuk, and this will be very important, and you will see Achronim say this, but l'chor der steht in Rambam. The Rambam says, it says in Posuk, V'noikev Shem Havaya. So since it says V'noikev Shem Havaya, it means the Shem Mizborech needs to be Dalet Oisios. In Igris Harama, in Siman Yud Gimel, he disagrees with the Rambam, and is of the opinion that you're being a Shem Mefurish not only for the Shem HaMizborech, but also the Shem HaMavorech. So in Sefer Teres Chaim, in Sanhedrin involvement Aleph, he explains something l'chor to double portion, because the posik by the it says by the Shem HaMizborech v'noikev Shem Havaya, and by the Shem HaMavorech it says Benok v'Shem. It doesn't say anything, so it just all you need is a Shem. So Shem Stam. It doesn't say Benok v'Shem Havaya. So therefore, the Ram's opinion is that the Shem HaMavorech is Benok v'Shem, just Tam Hashem of Sheino Nimchok, and the Shem HaMizborech is V'noikev Shem Havaya is the Shem Adalet. That is it's very simple, and l'cheira that's pshat in Rambam, because the Rambam says the lashon Rambam is v'yivorech oisei b'shem and Hashem b'shenim l'chokim. He says, and achi foresh Shem HaMiyuchot shel oiseis, and the Shem HaMavorech doesn't require, it's only Shem Shenema v'noikev Shem Havaya al Shem HaMiyuchot. So the diuk is al Shem Havaya, and l'chei what it means is by the Shem HaMavorech. It doesn't say Shem Havaya, and l'chei mamish it's l'chei it's chat Rambam, I would say. Now, so let's go on. Kishale mimash yom akefrim asichlim ilurav. Isale mimash yom akefrim. V'zehu ha'inyan shechanu oisai, and this is the topic or the subject that the Chazal were mechane. They use a nickname. They call it Bרכת Hashem. It's in a euphemistic sense. Bרכת Hashem Yisal. Omnom, ha'onesh li'over alav ze, hine hu mevuah b'Torah, or it's l'cheira mavua means that it's mufurish. I guess that's what Kapach says. It's mufurish in Torah shebiksav sheyisaker. V'hu amo yisale v'noikev shem havaya mos yumos rogam yilgamu boy kolo edo. V'ulam was hola hine loy bo'o bakosu as hola. There's no as hola in Torah shebiksav miuchedes bezeh ha'ovan levado. There's no azhora limited to Birkas Hashem. Our bo azhora koleles or inyan azeh v'zulasa. It's this. It comes to asa this and something else. So the stress of the Rambam is that the oynish is mefurish in Torah shebiksav, and the ashora is not. V'amar yisale elokim loisakalo. That's kodesh achol. Depends on what it's talking about. If it's talking about the Rabbi Shalom, it's kodesh. V'lashem b'chilta l'fi shoime v'noikev shem havaya mos yumos oynesh shamanu azhora loy shamanu talmud loyma elokim loisakalo. So the mechilta derives from like medin of ein oinshin k'mashirin. If there's an oinish, there must be an ashol. The sifra amu Hashem amiyuchad b'misra v'al shar hakinuyim b'ashora. So since there's an ashora, that ashora must be also by Shem amiyuchad. And it doesn't say which one it is, but there is an ashora. And the Ram just wanted to prove that there is an ashora. Over Mechilta, Gam Kein, Elokim Loisakalo, Litain Loisase al Birkas Hashem. And this Elokim Loisakalo is a Loisase al Birkas Hashem. Yeah, we pointed out problems in some of the issues of the text, but it's not central here, so I'm not going to go over it. Now, let's go on here. So this is the normal way that the Rambam ends mitzvahs. He says he gives you like an index where you can find the mishpatim of this mitzvah in Shvi Sanhedrin, and that's the Rambam's general approach. That the mishpatim, it's not for minyan mitzvahs, because here he's just interested in defining the mitzvah and telling you that there is a mitzvah minyan mitzvahs, and he gives you an address to find the dinim if you're interested. Okay, same. So there's going to be a discussion later, and which is coming up, which was central to probably what we're going to do this evening. Is not something about this mitzvah per se, but general knowledge which might be applicable to other mitzvahs also. And therefore, he has his normal epilogue of the mitzvah kvar his boy mishvazol in Meseches Ploni Perik Almodi or something. Okay, the same. So now let's focus on the task at hand. ודע שיויס המין הזה מן הסחורויס כולל שני דבורים או שלושה אינו ממין לאו שבקלולוס. So the Ram is dealing with an issue over here. And telling you that even though we learn out two things from this law of Elokim lo yisakalel, Klulas Elokim and Kilas Dayan, it's not a law shebeklolis. And that's a very important point because a law shebeklolis, according to the Rambam, can only be counted as one. There are basically two types of lav shebeklolis according to the Rambam. One is like Leisecha Adam, where there are many isurim, and none of them mentioned in the Torah, and it's only counted one. In Minyan HaMitzvos, it happens to be the lav from Ben Sarah Moel, from Mozehel L'Sevei. And there's another type of lav shebeklolis, which the various isurim are mentioned in the Torah, but it says once in the Torah lo, or al teichlu mimenu no ubosher bevusha b'moyim. There's an isa of Achilles Korban Pesach in no, and there's an isa bosher bevusha b'moyim. In fact, the Ramban disagrees and says that if the Torah has a list, like by Korban Pesach, or by Sol Dvash, or Yosef Almona Le'Sa'anu, where the Torah mentions a few things, even though it's one low, there are many lavim. The Rambam's opinion is that there's only one lav. See, here you have a problem. There are two things being neseh from this lav, but the Torah says only one's low. So maybe you should flip it and say, since the lav should be klalos, it should only be counted as one. And that's what the Rambam is dealing with over here. V'da sheyois hamin hazeh min ashor is clear l'shnei dvorim or shloisha. And l'chei, what the Rambam is saying is denying this is not lav shebeklolis. Einu mimin lav shebeklolis. And it doesn't have the halach. The halach of lav shebeklolis is if there's only one ashora, it's counted once a minyan HaMitzvos. And here, it's not the case. And the answer is, we have to know why. It's not any women lav shebeklolis. It's not a lav shebeklolis. That's what he's saying. Bishvil shakosu be'er ha'onesh b'chol inyan ve'inyan mehem v'yodanu behechach shechol inyan mehem muzah mimenu. Since in each case over here the Torah says that there's an oinish, so Memela behechach that they are separate isurim. Since they're separate oinishim, they're separate isurim. Ushehu mitzvahs leisaseh. כמו שביינו בהקדומו ששמנו לזה המיימו שש תשיעי. Okay, let's start slowly. So again, the question is a good question. Since the general rule in Church Chi is that if there's one low, it should be one lav in minyan mitzvahs. So how is this two lavim? So the answer is b'shul shakosim be'oinish b'chol inyan v'inyan mehem. And therefore it's to our holos because it's a separate oinish for each of the two separate inyanim. There's an oinish of misa of b'birkas Hashem and an oinish of malchus for killas dying. However, and this is just an aside, and this is why it's important that Ram did what he does. However, if you would find there are two inyanim and only one of them has an oinish, like an oinish misa, then it's only one. And that case is ben seru meira, that all these sum adam, are also, but there is no oinish except only one case. In the case, there's a chiyuv misa for ben seru meira for dozela v'seive, and that's in loisasek kuf sadihei, and it's only counted once in minyan mitzvahs. But if each one of the subjects of the lav has an oinish, a separate oinish, so therefore it's separate lavim. Now, a priori, the why this is so, you would have said it's something similar. If you look, for example, in Loisaseh Kuf Mem Gimel, the law of Maisa Dogon, he's talking about there's a separate law of Maisa Sheni of Dogon, of Tirosh and Yitzhak. And he says like this there, he says, that you'll think that it's a mistake. You'll keep it, you're far away from you, that it's a toes. Hey, Yisenu Moinim, Maisa Dogon, Umaisa Tirosh, Umaisa Yitzhak, Shloisha Mitzvas, Da. Shuhu Kishiyochal Shloshtem Keechod, Leika Kol Echod Ve'echod. לפי שזה הלאו, שבזה הפוסק אין לו לאו שבכלולוס, שאין לויקן עולו, ואומנם הוא לחלק. So you see separate malchus, that's the chiluk. So you could assume that this is like, for example, we have another case like this, of Shem Elohim Acherim Lo Yisaskiru, and there are two lavim because of it in minyan mitzvahs. There's Lo Yisaseh Yudalit, Shelo Li Shova Ba'avodazo Li'ovdeho V'lo Mashbi Oison Bo. And then you have in Loises Chavov the lav of lo lisnabe bishma to misnabe b'shem avodizov v'sheyidabe b'shem elim achirim b'chulei. And in Sefer Mitzvos he says Chavov ukva yodato hasherish shebialti lecho b'sherish haba also min hashroshim hakoidmim lezeh hamaymo. V'hu amram lo yonesh hakoser l'kein hizir v'tias hora shel mamoroi v'shem Elohim achim alois eskiru v'yeino nimna heyois lav echod mazir midvorim rabim. And you shouldn't say that's impossible that one lav should answer many different things and be many different lav in minyan mitzvahs. V'lo yeh mishpotoi mishpot lav shebeklolos she's boy oinish she's boy ha'oinish b'chol inyan ve'inyan. That the oinish is mentioned in the particular case. And l'chera, you only need the oinish of misa in the written in the Torah, but the oinish of malchus in Nishba Babu Zora or Makal Dayan. L'chera need Matik Yashmur. And that's what he writes. He says, Vishom is Ba'aro, that it's just Mavur, but you don't need it foolish. We also find a similar lashon in the end of Shosh Yudalit or the Akdama to Minyan Mitzvahs after the Shosh Yudalit. He says like this. Upamim yeh b'chlal dova acher b'chulei v'onam yeh lav shebeklolos shelo yimse b'shum mokom inyim min anyonim mehem shehuz mimenu ela min alav ahu kmo shebi'alnu b'shosh chi omnam kshetaktim lo yediyah b'yaseinu musholem en adova ahu v'zeh b'yoyme. Excuse me, it should be over here. He says like this: Kishetimse omnam kishetimse nimsa ha'inish b'beyor. That means mefuish in the Torah, b'Torah. Li'oise zeh ha'maase neda behechach shehu ma'isa asa muzrim menu. There's a separate isa. V'omnam noitzi behekish ha'azhora b'shvil sheyischazik lonu sheresh omam loyonesh kein hizir. So you need the einish of Misa Mefurish in the Torah, or the einish of Kolis Mefurish in the Torah. Because the Ram Shita is that the cloud of ein einish Kimashirin is formulated by Misas, Bezdin, and Kolis. However, you don't need the Malchus Mefurish, because Lamaisi is there's no case in the Torah that Malchus Mefurish, except for you bin Koisa Russia. Maybe in Zayman it's talking about whatever. But in general, the Torah doesn't say the Einish of Malchus in any place Mefurish. So this lashon over here is a little strange. B'shvil shakosu be'er ha'inish b'chol inyan v'inyan mehem. Kosu be'er ha'inish? True. By Birkas Hashem is by the einish of skila, but the einish of kilas dayonim is not mefulish of the kor. No person like that. And you see, this is further complicated because you see, when you talk about Nishba, B'Shem Avodah Zarah, Chazal say that there's Malchus. Matik Yashmur. So the fact that it's Malchus and there's Misa, so then we assume the two separate lavim. When there's only Misa, not Malchus, it's one, as we said, by Ben Serumayra. The problem is that, to the best of my knowledge, that when you talk about Makal Dayan, the Ram happens to be with the opinion that there's Malchus, but there's no Mefusha Chazal that I know of that you do. So, we have a problem, The Ram is inventing Malchus by Makal Dayan, and with that invention, it must be that there's two mitzvahs, mitzvahs. In fact, I found the Mashor asked a question. The Mashor in Chedushi Halachos in Mesechah Sanhedrin, Samach Vav and Aleph, V'loi hevanti dvorov. The Heichen Bier Einish is quoting this Rambam. The Rambam is Mavai Heichen Bier Einish Shel Makal Dayin Dol Holoi Osi Deloikin Olov Ela Michlal Elokim Loi Sekalil Shuhulav Shebeklolis the Osi Nami Las Holis Bikas Hashem. So Meichetei say there's Malchus here. It's not Mavu at all, this Einish. So you don't know, but if you're ready to postulate that there's Malchus for Birkas Hashem, excuse me, for Birkas Dayan, Killas Dayan, and you have the Einish by Birkas Hashem, so you have two separate lavim, mitzvahs. So a priori would have said there Elokim lo saskilu, Shem Elohim Achim lo saskilu, and Elokim lo sakalo, not allowed to be flawless because you have separate oinship. But lo yisrochol Adam, because there's only an oinish for Mrs. Besdin for Ben Saru Moira, is nisher a lav flawless. But the Ram is not mashma like that, even though at the beginning it seems to say like that. Is Ainui min lav shebeklolis, but he says v'zeh b'yomo yasa kach b'kach lo napid im oisas hora b'beyo, if there's mafurish ozor, oi hoiso bi'echod mishnei elu, hoiso b'frat, oi b'chlal. So b'chlal, I assume that there is kilu lav shebeklolos. I don't know. And then he says later, upomim yiyeh b'chlal, before this, the upomim yiyeh b'chlal dova acher, kamo shebialnu b'akdomos. So there's either hekish or b'chlal. Yiyeh lav shebeklolos, or maybe he's not saying, I don't know, because shelo yimse lonu b'shum mokoim, Indian. So he means that it will be a lav shebeklolos, and in general, if you find separate oinshim, it's not a lav shebeklolos. That's what I would assume. Maybe he's saying that. You have to go back and forth in the Rambam and see if it works out like that. But the best thing to assume is that both Elokim lo yisakalo and the Shem Elohim Achirim lo yisaskiru are not a lav shebeklolos, because you have separate oinshim and they're separate mitzvahs. Okay. Now, next. So we have here, let's see what we have again. Bishvil, the answer in the Rambam is Bishvil shakosu be'o inish b'chol inyan v'inyan. Yodana behechu shol inyan v'inyan mehem muza mimenu. They're separate isuim. Ushehu mitzvahs leisa say each one separately. Kamo shebeu b'akdomos shesamnu lezeh hamayma v'shoshchi. Okay. Now, uba'avur heyois or ika, that the shirish or the ika, this important idea, loy onash el im kain, is here. Nechapes acha hashora behechrach. Since there's a cloud of loy onash el im kain, he's here, then we should go about in a search mission to find the ashora. Nechapes acha hashora behechrach. It's and we will be successful. There certainly is one, whatever that is. Upamim yetze behekish, and sometimes you'll find it with something called the hekish. The word, the translation hekish, it's a Arabic word, kias. Kias in the Makor Arabi, Ibn Tibin interprets the hekish. Kapach says biachas min amidus. It means logical analysis or rational analysis. Okay, and that's a better translation, Tirgum. And Ibn Eov learns bisvara. Ufam yiyeh b'chal dova acher. Now, here is going to be an issue which is going to be central. I just want to mention it and mention what the Smag's opinion is, and then we'll see, to see what we can do to understand the Rambam. The moment we'll assume the Rambam goes one way. When it says Loy on the Shelinkin, he's here. Is Ki'ilu that there's a Kabbalah that the Oynish Misas Bezdin and Kores, since it requires an Ashora, each one, a peculiar Ashora, for each Oynish Misa or Kores, so Memela, we have a Kabbalah that there is an Ashora over here. And therefore, the Ashora is min aminyan. And that's the way the Minchas Chinuchs take on it in Mitzvah Samchtes, Ois Aleph. The Ki'ilu, ein Oynish im kin, ein Oynishin kamashirin, there's a Kabbalah, oh, there is an Ashora here. And as they say in Yiddish, Chatzkel Zuchmir, and your obligation is to find it, but whether you're successful or not, that there's something there. However, and we'll see more in the Ram about this, the Smag takes the opinion that wherever there's an Oynish, since the Torah is ein Oynish and Kimashirin, the Oynish itself could be the Ashora. The fact is an Oynish has an Isa. Smag, Lavin, Simon ratio test. Mikol Mokoy, Nechshov and Mekal Oviv V'imoy, Umake Oisom Shnei Lavim. Bifnei Atzmon, Choyel V'chayov Maleim, Mises Bezdin. Ki afilu loy motzinu shom shum ashora hamisa o hakores he who ashora v'chein hamavorach Hashem mizeh hatam nechshav lav bifnei atzmoy af al pi she'ashora me'elokim lo yisakalil shalomanu gam mimenu ashora l'v'kal dayin. Well, it's all not necessary because that's all itself is enough. I mean, the Oynish Mises by itself is enough. And and that's what the Yuchim Pula writes in this Smag, Mavur Midvor, the Sefer Oynish Misar Atzmoy, Gam Beloy Shum Ashora, Acheres, Klav, Yeshalov Teres Lav, Liosnim the Minyan Alabim. The Hilkoch, Afa Pish, Ashor is Makal, Ovi V'imoy, Eino Ela Min Alav, Shaloi Sakalo Cheresh, Homo Makalo Polodo, Panim the Lavochi, V'chesh Ben Alav, because of the Oynish. So again, the Ram says, Pomim Yetze Kame Pomim Eitz Behekish. Pomim Yetze Yotzo, you'll find it. It will be found. It was found. Will be found. Or Yetze Behekish, you'll find it through a Hekish or Midas Hatera. The Ki'ilu, the lab will be counted twice. So just before, is not exact, because it is true that the Ram discusses this in Akdama to Minyan HaMitzvos, but he only discusses one of the two. He doesn't discuss both. He only discusses the learning out a new lav from a hekish or from Midas Atera, but he doesn't discuss the option that one lav can be counted twice. And that he says, Omnom upamim lo tizbaya ashora b'kosu b'lav greda avu yaz yizko oynish levad b'nich ashora. Sometimes it only mentions the oynish and not the ashora. אבל השורש אצלנו, לא יעונש על כן הזהיר. ואפשר מבלתי היועץ הזהור לכל מה שישחייב ולא בעונש. ולכן אמרו, בכל מקום עונש שמענו הזהור מנין, תלמוד לומר כך וכך, וכשלא יסברו הזהור מן הכוסף, ילמדנו איסו בהקש מן הקשים התוריים, from מידס התורה. I'm skipping a little bit. כשנמצא העונש בביאו בתורה, מפורש לתורה, לעשה מעשה הזה, נדע בהכרח שהוא מעשה עשו, מוזר ממנו, and it's נעשה, it's a separate איסה. ואומנם נויצי בהקש הזורו, בשביל שישחזק לנו שורש, אומנם לא יעונש על כן הזהיר. Now, let's understand this, How is it possible that you can learn out an ashola from Midas Hatera? Don't we know, or don't we have Shiur Sheni? That Shiur Sheni says that you can't have an ashola learn from Midas Hatera. So l'chera, you could say that since you have a Kabbalah of ein Onishin Muzharין, and there's an Oynish over here, Kilu is a Kabbalah, that there is such an ashola. So Memela, this that you learn out from the drasha is not Midas Hatera, but it's Midas Hatera, which there's a Pirush Makubal based on. And therefore it's a Minyan Mitzvahs, and it doesn't violate Sherish base. That's one way of going, and that's very simple. And we'll talk about this as we go on. Let's go now, but there's another way. There's another way in saying that the Rambam really is like the smag. That the fact that there's an oynish, we know there's an ashola. You want to look for it, you can find it, but it's irrelevant. The fact that there's an oynish, that's enough to count in Minyan Mitzvahs. And the truth is, in Minyan HaKotzer would support this, and you just say that the Midas HaTorah are not real. It's only a smach to learn out a law, but you really don't need it. Let's now do some reading in Minyan Mitzvah Kotzer to give you an idea that you might take this approach in Rambam. For example, the lav lo yisasechavo shlo lehisnabe bishmo shenema v'asher yidabe b'shem Elohim acherim, and it's just saying there's a chiyuv misa. But it doesn't mention the lav at all in the Minyan HaKotzer. It doesn't say Shem Elohim Achim Lo Yisaskiu. In Lo Yisaseh Samuch over here, it's very interesting. He says, "Mumuzhum Abikus Hashem Shenema Elohim Lo Yisakalel V'nema B'yoinish V'noikev Shem Hashem Mus Yumos Zaklal Kol She'oner Shalom HaKosu Kores Oy Misas Bezdin Harezu Mitzvos Lo Yisaseh Chutz Mimilo Pesach Shein B'Kores Ein Aseh." So why does he mention, the question is, why does he mention the Einish? All it would have been enough to do is mention, it's only to me in Akotze, he should have mentioned the Lav. It's a lot. And then there's a very interesting Lashon in Nakdoma to me in HaMitzvos, and he says, the Omnom noitzi behekesh ha'asora b'shvil she'yischazik lonu sheirish omrom lo yonesh elen kein hizir she'yischazik sheirish there. What do you mean she'yischazik? Oh, lo yonesh kein nasirin. We need the love. Omnom kishenim so einish bebeil batero v'oisa ma'isa zeh neid behechach shu ma'isa also muz mimenu. The Omnom knows, okay, say that. So, he also, when he says that this over here, just have to ask, it's not 100% clear over here. Where he says, Ubavu heyoy soika lo yonesh elkein hizir nechapes achas ho behechach ufomim yetze behekish ufomim yiyeh b'chlal dov achet kol shibana magdomer yiyeh lav shebekol kishul. Okay, say that. The question is, you need it, or you know that it exists. Okay. Okay, so let's go on. On the kshetaktim lona idea v'yosenu muzharim min adov ahu b'zeh b'omrei mi she'oise kach ye'ose boy kach v'kach lo nakbid im hoyiso azhoro b'beyu or hoyiso b'echod mishnei elu. It means hoyiso b'frat. I assume that you learn it from Midas HaTorah. Or the Ashol is mentioned. Or Bechlal, where the Ashol is not mentioned, you learn it Bechlal something else. Dazeh. V'hine yovoy l'cho mimenu mitzvahs rabbi. So you'll understand because of this many mitzvahs, which we try to explain. Now, what I like to do is explain to you something. You see, this becomes very interesting. See, the question is, he says very explicitly in the Akdomo, and it could be over here also, but not 100%, that in the Akdoma to Minyan HaMitzvos, Omnom Kishet Nimsa, Ha'oinish B'beil B'Teir, if the Oinish is Mefuish in Teir Shebeksav. Le'oise Zeh HaMaise, Neida Behechach, Shu Maise also Muzeh Mimenu. It's also, and there's a lot. Okay. So, noitzi behekesh was holo, bishvil sheischazik lonu sheresh, omblam leonishkin hizir. To mechazik the sheresh. So the question is, and this I like to talk about for the next few minutes. What happens? We'll see about this. If you have an einish of kores or mises bezdin, which is not mafuish and Torah shebiksav, can you make a lav? Or because the lashon that Rambam is that it's mavur bakosu. It's not mavur bakosu. See, look at me, where am I coming from? So the interesting thing over here is that we have Pigul and Noisa. The Einish of Noisa is Mefurish in the Torah. And you could assume that the Rambam in Mitzvas builds a lav of Noisa based on the fact that it's Mefurish in Torah Shebiksav. In Zloisa Kufla Amar Aleph, Ishis Hilnu Me'achol Noisa, whatever Noisa is, okay, whatever. V'leiba Batera Azhor Bebeyo L'din Achilazo Aval Izbaye Batera Chiyuv Kores L'Mishiacha Noisa V'ama Yis'ale B'Pashas Kedoshim Tiyu B'Zochroi B'Zocher Korban Shlomi V'Noisa Ad Yom HaShlishi B'Eish Yisrael V'im Heochel Yeochel B'Yom HaShlishi Pigalu Lo Yerotze V'Ochel Avonu Yisrael Chiyuv Kores Ki Es Kodesh Hashem Chilel V'Nichos HaNefesh Hayi Me'ameo. So he says, Hine Hispoyer Loch Hispoyer Shehu B'Kores Imoy Amazing V'Imoya B'Shoigei Chai Chavchoy V'Zeh Ha'Einish Kosu. The Einish is with Mufbush and Tersh B'Ksav. Be'ula Mashola He Me'omroi B'Miluyim Lo Yeochel Kodesh Heim. So what's he Mizbaya, the Kosu, and the Einish is Mufurish in Kosu, and the Lav is not. L'chayr is alluding to the cloud of Ein Einish in Kim Asirin. However, the other case, the case of Pigul, becomes extremely interesting now. Because Pigul is not mentioned. The Einish of Pigul is not mentioned in Torah Shebiksav. And the interesting thing is, and that we'll have to see, is in Minyan HaMitzvos, the Rambam starts talking about the Lav before he talks about the Chiv Kolos. Let's just see what he does. Just read it. It's very interesting. Hishis Hilnu Me'achol Noisa Hu Mashe Nishal Mibsar Kadoshim Ach Razman Hamunach Lachiloso. Okay. Excuse me, sorry. I read the wrong thing. Kuf Lamed Beis. Hishis Hilnu Me'achol Pigul. V'ula Masho Me'achol Pigul Zehu Amroi Lo Yochel Ki Kodesh Heim. He mentioned the Lav out of nowhere. The Ulam Ha'inish Lamad Loisai Me'omu B'Pigul, and it's the Einish is a limud. The Pashat Sabbath A'aroi Tim Hecho Yeochel Mibasal Zevel Shlomo B'Yom HaShlishi Lo Yeirotza Makim Loisai Lo Yechoshev Pigul Yiyeh and Nefesh Ochel Zimenu Avodatisa. We don't know what the Avodatisa is. Uboa Kabbalah, it's like a Kabbalah. The Perish, the Apostle, Kilu, it's a Pirush Makubal, Shuhu Omnom, Yidabe, Bekorban, Shif, Sido, Isem, Achshova, Beis, Kakavos, והוא שיקו פיגו. ושאומרו יאכל יאכל ממנו אומנם ירוצה בוי כשחושב עליו כשיאכל ממנו ביום השלישי. אומרוי כיף אוזנך לשמוע ומחשב על זבחו שיאכל ממנו ביום השלישי הכוסף מדבר. שהוא ייפוסד, יפסד, בזויס המחשבו. מי שיאכל ממנו, ככה זויס המחשבו, חייב קורס. לאומר בוי, והנפש אוכלת ממנו, אבוי נטיסו. ואומר, בנויסה, ויאכל אבוי נייסו. כי אס קידש השם חילר, ונכנסו. ובגמורה, קריסס, אומרו, לסמור קריסס, יגזר שוב הקל בעיניך, שהרי פיגו אחד מגופי תירה, גופי תירה, that's the Lashon of the Rambam in Shiur Sheni, that a Pirush Mekubal makes gufei teira. שהרי פיגו אחד מגופי תירה, לא למדנו הכוסף על גזר שובו. the Aleph avoin avoin meinoisa, ksiv hocho והנפש האוכלס, ממנו avoin etiso. Ksiv also v'yoklavun egiso. Ma'alahalan kores afkan kores. So the question is, how is he getting the lab? Is he coming with the cloud of Einoshim Gasir and a Pirush Makubal is enough because it's Ki'ilu Mefurish B'Torah Miksav? However, the presentation is not mashma like that because he quotes the lab before he quotes chorus. And the Rambam Mishnah Torah is mashma that the Ashara Pigo is not because of Einoin Shin Kemasirun, but because of Kosher B'Kodesh Posel. So the Rambam Hilchos Psulim Mukdoshim in Perek Yudches Halacha Vav and Yud, Kol Mitzvah is Pago v'chulei v'chulei. Kol Oichli Meno Kol V'Mezid Kzayis V'Mezid Chayev Kolis. Shenema Nefesh Ocheles Avod Etisa V'Yimei Chol Yochel Meno Mevi Kol Mechatas Oichel Kzayis V'Misal V'Kodshim Shenoisa V'Mezid Chayev Kolis V'Shogim Mevi Chatos v'chulei. V'heichon hizi ha'kosav al pigo v'al noisa b'miluim shehari nemar shom lo yochel kodeshem bo lahazir al kol shepsulo b'kodesh shehu b'lo yisasa al achilos. So it's psulo b'kodesh, and since pigo and noisa are posted b'kodesh, there's a lot, but we don't understand why there are two lavim. And I would tell you, this is not the issue in Mishnah Torah because the Ram is not issued minyan HaMitzvos, so he doesn't talk about it. So we can understand that there's a law of kosher b'kodesh posel, but it doesn't help us. We don't understand why it's two law in minyan HaMitzvos. Now, the interesting thing in Minyan HaKotzeh, the Rambam does like this. In Kuf Lamed Beis, in Minyan HaKotzeh, he writes like this. Shelo yochal pigo, shnema maki voisa lo yechoshev lo, pigo yiyeh, vuhu b'kores. He doesn't quote that over there at all. So the pshat is that the Einish is enough, and the it's because of the Einish Kores. And the have to say the Shtikul Teira that since the Matiki Ashmu have a Kabbalah of Gufei Teira, that this is a bona fide Chiyuv Kores. And this also then might be one of the mitzvahs in Minyan, which depends upon a Kabbalah. Because without the Kabbalah, this Kores, you couldn't have concluded that it's an Ashola. The Rambam says it's 2 or 3, or 4, whatever. 3 or 4. Okay, so Mitzvah Hashem, we'll pick up, and maybe I'll talk a little more about this, but Mitzvah Hashem, I'd like to get into Shavuos Bitul next week.